Let's clear up South Florida and Florida. DeSantis blames anti-LGBTQ plus reputation on left-wing media.
Because of your policies in Florida, there are minorities, Black Americans, and there are people who are part of the LGBTQ community who think that you would discriminate against them.
Well, part of the reason they think that is because of narratives that are put out by media. I mean, for example, when we had the fight with Disney over the elementary education about should you have things about sex and gender identity, telling a second grader that their gender's fluid, we said absolutely not. Parents in Florida agreed, and throughout the country, I think, agreed with that. That was termed by the media as "don't say gay." The bill did not mention the word gay. I never said that gay people wanted kindergartners to be told they can change their gender. That was the media that created that and the left that created that. There were a lot of gay people in Florida that felt that was unfair to them because they didn't think it was appropriate to have that kind of...
When is the right age to talk about gender identity?
Well, I think the idea that a teacher would say, yes, you can change, and there's some schools around the country where they say it's okay to transition a kid without the parent's consent or knowledge. And as a parent, that is just unacceptable. I mean, schools serve an important function, but to be intruding into a family matter like that, I think goes beyond what is appropriate. And here's the thing, are we doing so well as a country on math scores and reading scores and science? Why don't we focus on those things? You know, that I think unites everybody regardless of their viewpoint. And I'm not saying be negative about, the gender identity stuff. I'm just saying I don't think it's appropriate to have in there at all.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis blames the media for his anti-LGBTQ plus reputation, even though the presidential hopeful has devoted his tenure to rolling back LGBTQ plus rights in his state. In an interview with CBS Evening News, DeSantis expressed his thoughts on NAACP's travel advisory for Florida, which warns that the state is hostile toward African Americans, people of color, and LGBTQ plus individuals. The Human Rights Campaign has issued a similar travel advisory. DeSantis called the warning a stunt and said everyone would be 100% welcome in his America. DeSantis claims that these warnings are given to promote and boost a very left-wing agenda, which he does not support. He took issue with the fact that activists and members of the media labeled the law he passed as the Don't Say Gay law, since the bill never actually mentioned the word gay. The 2024 presidential election candidate also claimed that Florida has more African American students on scholarship for conservative school choice programs than any other state in the United States. Wow, that was so lovely reading that story, especially since we've reported on so many stories that, this man has said publicly out of his mouth. Do we not remember him getting the gender-affirming care list for all of those who have sought gender-affirming care at any hospital that has a...
By the way, that's what the Nazis did in 1939. Give me your address and phone number.
But it's funny when you're losing, what all the things that you start coming out, and when you're backed against the wall, like a little chihuahua, you have to... And then
Is that what you just watched?
That's what I just watched. And you saw me cut. I was just like, oh my God. It's just ear bleeding, all the lies.
Poor Governor Delusional. He says he's a parent. No, honey, you're not just a parent, you're obvious. And why don't you blame yourself or that broodmare that you're married to? And don't, under any circumstances, put this on the so-called left-wing media for reporting what we're doing, and we were reporting the truth about you and your insidious mission.
Yeah. It's just fascinating that he makes every effort to diminish democracy, and he attacks the most marginalized groups within the community in order to divide rather than unite. If he had one fingernail of Nelson Mandela, this country would be in much better position. But this is a person who would have said that Nelson Mandela would have been a better leader had he been an American slave, because he would have learned skills.
Ooh,
And Nelson Mandela will go down in history as one of the greatest leaders, one of the greatest men to ever grace this planet. DeSantis will be lucky if he's a footnote.
Yeah.
History catches up with you. I completely agree with that. One of the things, first, I acknowledge my comment makes absolutely no difference. The value of my voice against what you just watched makes absolutely no difference yet. But we need 3 or 4 or 5 million to say the exact same thing, and it stands up to this revisionist history that we're watching. What he says there, in my opinion, is exactly what we've watched him do in Florida. He reinterprets, and then he tries to sell it as actual fact and history by reinterpreting. The one good thing that's going on, you, I think, hit the nail right on the head, Jamal, is that he's been trying to export it around the country, and the country's not buying it. Dude, you're in great trouble. You're going to come back to Florida because the nation's going to send you back to Florida.
But what's so interesting is how his legislative buddies are not his friends anymore. So he's coming back to a very different Florida, one that he can't bully anymore, and that hopefully will work best for the people of this state.
I think what he's finding out is, as he travels the country, is that America doesn't mirror him as he thought they did, and so now he's turning he's backtracking off of that.
To that point, one other note. The narrative is being driven not because of my actions or my words, but because of what the media is saying about me and my actions and words. One of the hallmarks of media, whether you love them, you hate them, you watch them, you don't, whatever it is, Donald Trump helped convince many people, not all people, but many people, that all news is fake. It is not. We laugh when we hear that phrase of fake news. He's been successful in branding, just like Don't Say Gay. Wait, we learned it from Donald Trump. Let's get a catchy little phrase and we'll slap it on and we'll beat the crap out of you with it, which is what Don't Say Gay has done across the world. But his narrative that we've just watched here is, well, the reason this narrative exists is because the media is selling this. Let's review. Even Queer News Tonight can do a little fact checking to what he just said. So let's do a little quick fact check. It was your press secretary last year that said, if you don't support the legislation of Don't Say Gay, you're a groomer. That was a fact. The press secretary of the governor of Florida said you're a groomer if you don't support them. That is a lie. You had a cabinet member 3 months ago that said, if you disapprove of our agenda and what we're doing in Florida, don't let the door hit you in the ass as we want you to leave the state of Florida. And that was directly aimed at the trans community. We want you to leave the state. That is our goal. And the cabinet member said it. That is a fact. Governor DeSantis is a liar. He created the thunder roll of Black AP history classes in Florida by suggesting that the Black AP history course that had been universally recognized in America for almost 30 years was flawed because it was based on queer theory. So he simultaneously attacks the Black community and woke and the gay community that they're helping support the woke Black community. That is a fact that came out of your mouth. I watched you say it. And of course, Robert hits the real death nail, which is you went to Jacksonville to try to sell the idea that slavery was good for you. These are all facts. The media of Florida and the media of America and the media of Queer News Tonight did not make these up. You and your cronies said and did them. And that's why the narrative perception against the Black community and the LGBTQ community exists in the way it is. You did it. And America's waking up.
And he also never stood up when Nazis marched with him. And he said nothing.
Yeah.
And we've seen that before too.
Yes, again,
History
1939.
Terrifying.
And during the Trump campaigns.
And by the way, I just get an echo out. It's one of the reasons organizations like the National Stonewall Museum and Archives and Library is so important, because history is important. We must remember where we came from and what we watched and how people acted. Because if we allow that kind of statement to go, no, none of this is true because it's really the narratives of media that's creating this, he's just saying it in a more sophisticated, except a less colorful way of fake news. You can't sell that. And when historians and organizations like Stonewall National Museum exist, you can't sell it because here are the facts. Let's live in the facts.
For sure.
We remember what happened.
We will never have a brighter future if we don't know how we got here.
That's exactly right.
Sanko.